Today's video is about my story and my connection to God and what led me back to this calling back to Jesus Christ ultimately. I feel that a lot of my life has entailed really being immersed in a lot of human experiences and noticing different patterns and the way that they have played out in my life, and how these patterns are not actually unique to me, and how they play out in all of humanity in so many different ways. And so I feel that this message will land for different people in different ways, and it's not really about pushing anyone to go back to religion, but rather to open up to a new and higher way of being that transcends all the human gunk, for lack of a better word, and helps us remind us that, yeah, that too is part of our story and all of it is beautiful. And yet, there's something deeper within all of us that is waiting to be unlocked when we give space for divinity to flow through us. And that has been so much a part of my journey, and I want to share some really raw experiences that I've had in my life that I've overcome, because I think that this is a lot of people's stories. And when we see someone else in their vulnerability and understand that there's a part of us in someone else and that we're all interconnected, that's where really deep healing takes place, both individually as well as collective. And so, yeah, I'll be sharing a lot from the heart today and just seeing where the divine takes me, really. So the first thing I want to share is I live in Costa Rica. I moved from the Northeast. I was in New York for about a decade, and I really loved my time there. That is still one of my favorite cities in the world, and I can't wait to be back. However, it was a different kind of lifestyle, being in the concrete jungle versus the jungle. And I loved that lifestyle. I loved feeling that I was hustling and making big things happen. You know, it's a city that never sleeps. And I found a lot of meaning in that for some time in my life. And even before I moved to New York, there were so many other things that happened with college and being in Philadelphia for a little bit. So many different experiences as I grew into this young adult. And some of them were really challenging moments. I used to drink a lot of alcohol. I wouldn't necessarily call myself a former alcoholic, but it was to the point where, you know, it was a thing, going to nightclubs and getting trashed and thinking that the more trashed I was, the more fun I would have. So if I ever woke up feeling that I couldn't remember my night, I assumed it was a really good night. And there were times where I woke up on a nightclub bathroom floor, saw my purse open, all the cash was there, but my ID got taken. There were times where I did the Irish exit, and my friends had a thing. They just assumed that I left for pizza. And a lot of times I would actually get a pie of pizza and then eat it with a homeless person. It was a thing, yeah. And so there were so many things that transpired. And right before my spiritual awakening, which is something that really opened my eyes to something higher and much more powerful than the limitations of the human experience, that I was being open to almost a decade ago, was after this breakup in my life, where I was shown different ways that I had been participating in unhealthy dynamics. Even though it was a very loving relationship, there was no real intimacy. And I remember things that I would let slide, like it's okay for the person I'm dating to go hang out with the guys in New York City, and then you're passing by my city. I was living outside of New York City at the time. So, you can get a quick hit before you go into town with the guys. And that feeling of being wanted, even if it was just for 20 minutes. When you haven't felt that in childhood, the actions that we take in life to get attention, to feel that someone is choosing us. And God literally had so many things removed from my life really rapidly. 1 month I am looking at apartments to live in with this person. We thought we were moving in together. We're looking at engagement rings. We're looking at wedding venues. And next thing, we're breaking up. I can no longer live with the people I was living with at the time. I'm moving out of my apartment after midnight. And within a weekend, even though I'd been looking for a new place to live for 2 years and couldn't find anything within the range I was looking for, that weekend, when everything went down, I found the most amazing high-rise. Or rather, God gifted me the most amazing high-rise apartment. And it was actually more than within the range that I was looking for. And it also had the most beautiful views of the skyline because we were on such a high floor. And it had really big windows, the ceiling to floor windows. And it was incredible. And I think that was my first moment of trusting that, okay, a lot just happened. And it technically, even though it felt like it happened in a weekend, it actually was almost more than a year, something that I'd known that this was not meant to be, but not willing to let go because I was attached. And when everything just started to unravel, I realized that God has my back because something came through just like that, and it's so much better than what I had envisioned for myself. And after that, I started to lean on more of what would be God's will over mine. What this means is that a lot of times we grow up in a world where we just want what we want and we want it right away. Hearing the word patience is a lot, even for me up to this day. Because sometimes we associate patience with thinking that things are going to take a really long time, that we're just waiting around, and that's not what patience means. And this is an ongoing learning that is being ingrained into my own understanding of it, which is that God is trying to say, can you step away and relinquish control of your life and let me pick up the legwork? Stop micromanaging me, let me do my thing, and then you help me seed the vision onto this planet. But when we live in high-strung environments and we're taught by a world that doing more and exerting ourselves more makes us more productive and therefore more worthy, when we're attaching worth to what we're doing, keeping ourselves busy often with things that are very minute, things that don't even really matter, there's no space to connect with this higher power that is moving through us at all times. And I feel that this plague that has bothered humanity for so long, which is, I've seen it both within myself as well as clients, patients of mine, okay? These are raw, vulnerable conversations I've had with cancer patients where I've had several people look at me and say, Bina, could it just be that maybe I'm broken? And that stung because I know what they meant by that statement. They feel that they're damaged, that they won't ever be able to change their lives. And the reality is, none of us came into this world as fragmented beings. We are whole exactly as we are. We were made and born of divine perfection. Divine perfection. Yes, our human parts are flawed. However, I don't believe in this traditional aspect of God judging us and punishing us. I don't believe in that. I believe that's the way we have interpreted it. I believe that in God's eyes, we are instantly forgiven. Because the caveat is that he doesn't even see us as sinners. That's our humanity. Now, does this mean just go out and do whatever you want because you're forgiven? My personal belief is no. Try to be the best human you can be, all of us. That we have this moral obligation to do right by ourselves and right by others, seeing one another as brothers and sisters. However, this whole experience and what has transpired for over a decade has made me understand that that whole experience, what shook up my world at that time, was opening my mind, my awareness, my entire body up to this idea of spiritual evolution, and knowing that certain phases of our lives can be accelerated. We can have accelerated periods of transformation. And it's largely has to do with where our soul is at and how quickly it wants to move and where it has to go so that it can do the work that it's meant to do on this planet. Now, after that experience, a lot of things continued to fall apart in my life. And it was this period of not necessarily things falling apart in a negative way, but actually things coming apart that had an unsteady foundation to begin with. And the only way to rebuild it was to build it from a truly rooted foundation that was rooted on something much bigger than personal gains. It was something for the greatest good of all. And that's not always easy to lean into. That's where our patience gets tested. Because when we're moving with God's timing, please do not think that if you're moving with God's timing that it takes forever. God's timing is happening right here, right now. That's the irony. After all those things happened, so many habits and behaviors were changing. Instead of going to bars, I was meditating for 6 hours a day. And one of the first teachers that I personally found on my path was Deepak Chopra, who I love because his story reminded me a lot of my path, which is he is an MD, he's a doctor, he's an endocrinologist, and then he felt this calling interest. He felt this change, this rise in consciousness as he was speaking to his patients. And so he talks a lot about meditation and consciousness and quantum health. He talks a lot about it, and his work is really inspiring for me. And he is a key figure in my life. I have a story that I'll share about him at the end of this because I feel that it ties a lot of things together. One of the behaviors that shifted in my life unexpectedly with meditation and now going to different spiritual centers and trying to understand the meaning of life was that I also became celibate for 5 years. And that was not something easy to practice, and yet I can share with you that one of the biggest things that anyone can do for themselves during celibacy is you are purifying your energy. It's not to say sexual energy is dirty or contaminated, no. It's powerful energy. It's more to say that when we're just leaking that energy out to just anyone, just for the sake of the moment, it's actually depleting for our life force energy. And a lot of times people will think, well, what do we do when we have all that energy? And there's so many things that you can channel that towards. Creativity, creating something really big, and using that way to discover different forms of pleasure, whether it's getting a facial, being out in nature. There's so many things. And so a lot of things started to happen during that time. I started to notice that I was tuning into the power of God so much more, that he was easily making his mark known in my life. I started going back to church, and I would usually go 15, 20 minutes before the Mass would start so I could have that moment of silence, just being in the presence of his holiness. I would start going to a lot of the Hindu temples, so I felt that I had that balance between, seeing and being in the presence of God, and also celebrating the goddesses of Hindu mythology. And I loved it. It felt like such a beautiful dance, and I was learning so much about myself, especially during these moments of solitude, which is so healthy for our energetic body and our spirituality. And in those times when it got really weird and I felt that nothing was happening, have you ever had a moment where you just thought, it just feels like nothing is happening, as though life is just plateau? There's actually so much happening behind the scenes, underneath the surface. It's just not being revealed to you yet. Because what I thought would just be like a 1 or 2 year thing ended up becoming a part of my ongoing spiritual evolution, where even where I'm at now, and there's so many things that are coming full circle, and it feels so beautiful, and I will touch upon that. I feel that this was a process, and it wasn't about being patient and waiting around. It was about me living my life and letting God take care of the finer details and letting him stretch the vision for what he wanted to create in my life. And me using the power of discernment and listening, being open to listening to what messages are being conveyed to me and what's actually for me, what intuitively feels right in my body, what feels in alignment, not just for me. Because there was a part of my life where it was just about me, personal gains. It was. And then God will always have us see that there's something bigger at hand. And that's when we start to see that our actions really impact the collective. And so in recent years, a lot of things that I've done had to shift to how is this serving me and humanity. And it's a dance, right? Because sometimes we can fall out of that and become self-absorbed. We all have this. However, I think this is where the power of divinity and God in my life becomes even stronger, because this is where I become humbled again. This is where I'm reminded of the deeper universal truths, which is that we are all love and that we all deserve this peace and abundance and love and harmony in our lives, that we all deserve to feel good. Throughout this journey, I've gone through many periods where I felt that I was in a void. Most of the work I do is with women who are going through some type of void in their lives, whether it's a transitional period, divorce, breakup, a health diagnosis, or a new health issue. Something happening in their careers, maybe they were let go of a job. Are you catching a theme? The theme is that when you undergo a shift in your identity, when life presents a situation where you are almost, it feels like forced to let go of a core part of your former identity. This is a very painful process because you are shedding layers of all that you formerly knew. Imagine going to the same job for 20 years and then one day your boss calls you in and says, "We don't need you anymore." Imagine what that would do. You see the same people for 20 years every single day. You think that this is the job you're going to retire with. You have big dreams about what it's going to look like after, and suddenly you realize that's not the dream anymore. And, excuse me, there's insects everywhere. That can be challenging. And what's interesting that I'm learning is that that period is challenging because it brings up so much uncertainty. And yet the irony is that we are constantly living in periods of uncertainty in our lives. It's just that in those moments that feel more abrupt, where it feels like the rug was swept underneath your feet, that's when it's the most volatile, because it happens just like that. And the shift can happen so suddenly. I honor that. I know that's challenging. And so during those transitional moments, what I like to call the void, it often feels like, yeah, something happened, and then now what? You're in this space between who you used to be and who you could be. And you don't know what's going to come about. And what my previous thinking was, and this served me to a point in my evolution, my previous thinking was that in that period, you can recreate yourself to be whoever you want to be, which is true, actually, to a degree. You can remold yourself to a different identity and become someone absolutely new. And we've seen that happen in our own lives. Haven't you ever seen someone go through a breakup and then they go through their dark night of the soul and then suddenly they come back and you're like, whoa, what happened? Brand new. And yeah, it's because the person has now transformed into a different version of themselves, who they would want to be, to feel more authentic, to feel more aligned with who they really are, rather than how people used to know them. And that is a huge transformation. That is a huge transformation. However, the space that I've been for the last several years, and it continues to unfold, is this deeper surrendering to God and asking God, who would you have me be? What is God doing to reprogram me and shift me on a deep, cellular, internal level? What is he doing to serve the world? What is he doing through me to serve the world? And trusting that he is remolding and reconfiguring this entire being so that I can embody the vision that he has for the planet through me and seeding that onto planet Earth. And I believe this is the work of, yes, the divine feminine, and also this is everyone's work. And it doesn't really feel like work. It feels more like God leads, I follow. God is taking care of everything. And it's my job to step out of the way, let him do his thing, and then help him anchor in this vision onto the planet that serves every single person in the most beautiful way. Even people that I don't meet, we send out this signal into the world just by being our most authentic selves and coming from that place of love and alignment. It can be felt. Energy can be felt even through a screen. And it continues to ripple out and create a beautiful impact in the quantum. And I believe that's the power of God. It's so infinite that it just keeps going, and that if there's no end, of course his vision for us will be so big. Of course his vision for us will be so grand that it stretches us. Is he even testing us, or is he just expanding us to show us the bigness that he sees in us? There's a beautiful yellow butterfly that just came by when I said that. That was so beautiful. I feel that this is the meaning of true heaven on earth. God wanting us to see that all of our heart's desires are actually his desires moving through us. Did you see that? The beautiful yellow butterfly. Thank you, God. And thank you, Gaia. And if I came from a story before where I was drinking a lot to move away from the stress, to feel that I belonged, that I mattered in the world, waking up in a nightclub bathroom on the floor. And I've come this far in my life. I give all my glory to God. I really do believe that this entire co-creation was really his vision for me. And that when I finally surrendered to it, and it's an ongoing surrender, I could walk side by side with him. Or rather, him within me. And then plant them on earth. Even when I didn't know what the greater plan was. But knowing that I've tried my human plan multiple times, and I can create beautiful things. But this good God creates the most epic things. The most epic things. Last year, this is where I'm feeling guided to tie all this together. Last year, I had a huge download one Friday afternoon that I'm moving to Costa Rica. I was not having it. I've been to Costa Rica before. Beautiful things happened in my life after I got back, and I really loved this land. However, it was not where I wanted to move to, and it was interfering with my human plan. So it was a no. And I stepped out of my own way really quickly, and I asked God, and I prayed to him. I said, if this is really your plan for me, you have to make it crystal clear. And the next morning, I got an email saying Costa Rica retreat leaders wanted, and my entire nervous system started getting really jittery and excited. I fell over on my meditation mat, and I was ungrounded too. So there was a lot of Kundalini energy and just so much. It was a lot of power moving through me. And when I talk about power, I'm talking about spiritual energy. It was something that it just woke up. It just woke up, and it was starting to move through me really freely. And it was pretty chaotic. And I kept asking God, why? But why Costa Rica? I really wanted to know all the details and analyze it with the logical part of my brain. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, there are moments in life where we have to bring what we know here down into our heart so that we don't just speak our truth, we don't just speak our wisdom, but we actually live our truth. Live our God-given truth, the universal truth, the truth that serves all. Things like everyone deserves love, everyone deserves peace, everyone deserves good health and well-being. Everyone deserves to have their voice heard. This is a next level of spiritual evolution. And so I still ask God all these questions, and during my time here, I think this is my 8th month here so far. During my time here, I've had moments where I thought, God, I've been patient enough. Where are you taking me? What's next? And a few months ago, I heard, slow down, just be. And in that month, I was so held and taken care of, and noticing different things coming and unfolding that I just wasn't even looking for. And I believe the lesson in this is that it's like ordering food at a restaurant, being patient, not sitting there, where's the food, where is it? It's going about your life, breathing in the beautiful air, taking in the scenery, immersing yourself in the fullness, the grandeur of your life, and then letting God bring it all to you. I wouldn't even call it attraction, like you're attracting it in. I wouldn't even call it that. I would call it living. As you're living, you're experiencing, and God just keeps providing. That's what it feels like in my life right now, and I want to share the beauty of this. And so last year, and this ties in with the finale for this segment, or this message. Last year, one of my really young cousins passed away unexpectedly in her sleep. She had a medical condition. And that experience really impacted me, because even though I didn't really know her that well, I saw how much she had impacted the people in her world. I had never seen so many people attend a funeral. And the way people spoke about her and how involved she was with her community, with her high school. She was volunteering at animal shelters. She was constantly in nature. I thought it was really weird that I saw so much of myself in her, but we didn't know each other. And the one thing that I really took out of that experience was one of her friends gave a speech and said that he's always going to remember that moment because she had just called him the night before to check up on him. And then she passed away that night. And I could tell my cousin had lived, despite her short-lived existence, she had lived the fullness of it. She danced, she was involved in dance organizations, she did Indian Bharatanatyam, and she really lived the fullness of her life despite this medical condition. She had a choice and she chose to go all out and be alive in her life. And fast forward, I'm now in Costa Rica, and I've had some moments where I'm thinking, is it all going to work out? What's happening? God, where are you taking me? And it's been such a process of learning to trust deeper and have faith when it feels so blind to do so. How many moments have we had that feeling as though, I know I need to have faith in the situation, but I just can't find it right now. I just can't. And when I think about that experience and what my cousin taught me, please keep in mind a woman that I never really knew. I thought, I'm not done on this planet yet. My time isn't done until I've done what my cousin did. Until I've lived my heaven on earth, I'm not done on this planet. And that's what my cousin did. She lived her heaven on earth, and she went in peace. And I feel that where God is taking me now in this full circle moment is, yes, weaving this love that I feel from my family, from my ancestors, from nature, from all the different elements, from God, from Gaia, all the beautiful people that I'm surrounded by, my family, my loved ones, my community. And understanding that we can only create things when we realize that we are a collective family. That's humanity. And that the reason that I was in such a state of being poured out last year and being in this void and thinking, what's happening? What is God doing to shift and mold and recreate this new me? Is that it wasn't about who I wanted to become. It's about who He wanted me to be. And that takes another level of surrender. Because in that state, God has a bigger plan. That's really what it is. God has a bigger plan. And His plan is always going to stretch what we thought was possible for our lives. And I really feel that I can feel my cousin's light and the power of her story. And understanding that even some of those darker moments of my own story from a decade ago, that too matters just as much as where I am today. The humanity and the divinity go together. And yet it's this deepening, this connection, this relationship that I have with God that just reminds me that I'm safe, that I'm always taken care of. After my cousin passed away, I had a huge vision, because when you're processing grief and all these emotions come out of you, you usually become a really clear channel for creativity. And for me, I was meditating, and while meditating, I was releasing emotions and feeling a lot of grief come through, also feeling the sadness that her parents were experiencing at that time, my aunt and uncle. And in that space, I had a huge vision come through that was so unexpected. And this was before I moved to Costa Rica. And I just said, how? How would I even do that? That's the thing. When the visions are really big, it's not up to us to take care of it. It's going to be God. Our job is to be open, be available to receive, and then let him take care of all of it. And then we help him. We're going to help him plant that vision onto the earth. And I still wasn't trusting it. And then it's happened twice here in Costa Rica this year where the same vision has come to me at unexpected times, because it's not happening on my timing. Do you understand? It's happening when it's that perfect divine timing, when there's space for that vision to be received. And both times I had that vision, my entire body just felt this shift, and I just burst into tears both times. Not just purging, but I mean just burst into tears. And I said to God, if this is what you want me to co-create with you, I need the right people to help me. And I let it go, not getting attached to the vision, just letting it go and letting him really take care of it this time. And finally, I started meeting different people who I felt it was little signs showing me that I am on the right path. And right now, I feel that I'm just on this beautiful, massive property. It's 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, with 1 bedroom being a guest house. And it makes no sense. Let me share that. It makes no sense. But I just know it was a gift from God. And what would be the third bedroom in the guest house is actually my podcast recording studio. And there's so much peace here that I feel, which feels to be my internal state too. I just feel so at peace right now. And I know it's because I'm surrendering to God and more of his plan. It feels so beautiful here. So divine, so ethereal. And of course, when I get to this place, this is the first place I have come to in Costa Rica that, besides the beaches and besides nature, this is the first place that was created by a human with God that I am deeply inspired by. And I will admit that I'm not easily inspired. And I do have high standards. However, I can feel when something is created out of passion and love, because I love to create things out of true, deep passion and love. And not things that just would be the easy thing that I can do right now. Nothing wrong with that. We're all here to create different things. But things that you can tell they're a masterpiece. They truly are a masterpiece created by God. And so this home has a really beautiful Balinese feel to it. The walls are really light. There's beautiful, big, gorgeous windows all over the place, and so much natural light coming through, and so much nature around. And the host said, yeah, I even love these trees. Like, I felt such a connection to the land here. And I looked at her, and she has tears in her eyes as she's showing me this place. And I looked at her, and I'm like, I feel so much love in this space. I feel that there was love etched into every corner of this place that I've not felt in any place I've walked into so far. I've seen the different things people can create, and I felt like, wow, this is beautiful. However, this is the first place I've landed that I'm like, God, if this is what you want me to co-create something like this with what we're about to do, I'm all in. Like, this is me. This is like my dream home. And I look at this woman and she goes, Bina, I'm the architect. I built this home. And that's how I know that I did not even have to look for the person. God brought her to me. And I'm sharing with her a little bit about my story and what unfolded the last couple of years. And she looked at me, and we just looked at each other like, this is God. This is God at work. He leads, I follow. And I just have to share for any person, man or woman, anyone who's watching this video and you feel like you're in a place where things are coming apart and you're just like, I don't know how much more I can do. It's just a lot. It's been just one thing after the other. Like, there are days where you just feel like you can't go on. God's not done with you yet. God is not done with you yet. God has a plan. He has a divine plan over your life, over your story, your mission. It is so much bigger than what you could have ever imagined for yourself. God is not done with you yet. God is just getting started. And you'll notice that because every time you come and graduate to a new phase of your evolution, it's like, wait, I just closed out a cycle. And yeah, you're on to the next one. Then you realize God is still not done with you yet. Things can continue to get better and better and better. That is heaven on earth. And so yeah, my cousin, I'm thinking of her. I really feel that she had such a profound impact on my life, and seeing the different parts come together. My time on this planet is not done until I've lived my heaven on earth the way that my cousin did. Yeah, God is not done with you yet. Until you are living your heaven on earth, God is not done with you yet. Thank you for watching this. Namaste.